A black single mother woke up to find the CEO making breakfast. What he said left her speechless. "You shouldn't be here." The words came out of David Mitchell's mouth before he could even fully process the situation. There he was, CEO of Mitchell Corp., one of the largest technology companies in the country, standing in the kitchen of a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood, holding a cup of coffee as if it were the most normal thing in the world. Camila Santos, 28, a single mother of a 6-year-old girl, blinked several times, trying to understand if she was still dreaming. She had worked as a cleaner in the Mitchell Corp corporate building for 3 years, always on the early shift, always invisible. And now, inexplicably, the most powerful man in the company was in her kitchen. How did you get in here?" she whispered, pulling her robe tighter around her body. David looked at her with a confused, almost disturbed expression. His expensive clothes were wrinkled, there was a small cut on his forehead, and his eyes had that lost look of someone who had just woken up from a nightmare. "I don't know," he admitted, placing the cup on the sink with slightly trembling hands. "The last thing I remember is leaving the office last night after that tense meeting with the board. After that, nothing. I wake up here, and you were sleeping on the couch." Camila's blood ran cold. She had slept on the couch because her daughter Isabella had had nightmares and was sleeping in her bed. And now a stranger, even if he was the CEO of the company where she worked, had spent the night in her house without her knowing how or why. "My daughter," she began, rushing to the bedroom. "She's fine," David said quickly. "I checked when I woke up. She's sleeping peacefully. I didn't disturb her, I swear." Camila stopped in the middle of the hallway, her mind racing. Something was wrong with this whole story. David Mitchell wasn't just any CEO, he was known for his arrogance, for treating employees like numbers, especially those in lower positions such as cleaning and security. She had overheard his conversations in the office during her nights on duty. Comments about certain people having no ambition, about how the welfare culture created lazy people. She had heard him laugh at the story of an employee who had to miss work because her child was sick, saying that people like that always have an excuse. And now he was here in her home, acting vulnerable and confused. "Listen," David continued, running his hand through his messy hair. "I know how strange this must sound, but I need your help. I can't remember how I got here, and there's something about last night. Something important that I'm forgetting." Camila watched him carefully. There was sincerity in his voice, but there was also something else, an urgency that didn't match the arrogant man she knew by sight. "Why would I help you?" she asked, crossing her arms. "You don't even know my name, do you? 3 years cleaning your offices, and I bet you never even noticed me." David paused, clearly uncomfortable. Do you work in the building?" "Early shift. Cleaning. Invisible to people like you." His expression changed slightly. There was something there, a flash of recognition or perhaps guilt. But before he could respond, Camila's phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello. Camila Santos." The voice on the other end was cold, professional. "This is Rebecca Mitchell, from Mitchell Corporation. We need to talk about what happened last night." Camila's heart raced. Rebecca Mitchell, David's younger sister, vice president of the company, known for being even more ruthless than her brother when it came to protecting the family's interests. "I don't know what you're talking about," Camila replied, looking directly at David, who had stopped moving completely. "My dear, we know exactly where my brother spent the night. And we know that an opportunistic cleaning lady like you might see this as a golden opportunity to blackmail our family." The words hit Camila like a slap. There it was, the raw, naked prejudice she faced every day, but now amplified by the impossible situation she found herself in. David reached out for the phone, but Camila ignored him. "Listen carefully, Rebecca," she said, her voice taking on a firmness that surprised even herself. "I don't know what your brother was doing here, but I'm not an opportunist or a blackmailer." "Of course not," Rebecca laughed coldly. "That's why I'm going to make you an offer. $5,000 to forget this ever happened. That's more money than someone like you sees in a year." Camila felt a familiar anger burning in her chest, the same anger she felt every time she was treated as less than human because of her skin color or financial situation. "Someone like me," she repeated slowly. "You understood perfectly. Take the money and sign a confidentiality agreement, or we'll find ways to make your life very difficult." David was gesturing frantically, clearly trying to stop his sister from continuing, but Camila had heard enough. What Rebecca didn't know was that Camila had grown up in an environment where survival meant outsmarting those who tried to walk all over her. She had earned a degree in business while working 3 jobs, had raised a daughter on her own since she was 16, and had learned to recognize opportunities where others saw only problems. And at this moment, looking at David Mitchell, powerful, lost, and clearly hiding something important, she realized that the universe had placed something far more valuable than $5,000 in her hands. "Rebecca," she said calmly, "thank you for the offer. But I don't think you understand the situation as well as you think you do." The line was silent for a moment. "I'm being kind," Rebecca said finally, her voice laden with menace. "But that kindness has an expiration date." Camila hung up the phone and looked at David, who was watching her with a mixture of admiration and terror. What neither of them knew was that this conversation had been Rebecca Mitchell's first fatal mistake. And what Camila kept secret was that her apparent vulnerability hid a strategic intelligence that had been forged by years of silent injustices. While David remained there, clearly torn between loyalty to his family and something his mind still couldn't fully access, Camila made a decision that would change everything. If they wanted to play the game of power and prejudice, she would show them that she had learned the rules better than any of them could have imagined. If this story of injustice and determination has touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because what you don't know yet is that the real battle was just beginning, and Camila Santos was about to teach the Mitchells a lesson they would never forget. "You don't understand who you're messing with," David muttered after Camila hung up the phone, his voice laden with a strange mixture of admiration and concern. "Rebecca doesn't usually make empty threats." Camila watched him for a moment, noticing how his hands trembled slightly. The powerful CEO she knew from the corporate corridors seemed different, vulnerable, almost human. "And you don't understand who your sister is messing with either," she replied calmly, walking over to the window. Below, a black car had been parked for over an hour. "How old do you think I am?" The question caught David off guard. "I don't know. 25? 26? 28? Do you know how many of those years I spent being invisible to people like you?" She turned to him, her eyes revealing an intensity he hadn't noticed before. "All of them. 28 years of listening to people like your sister talk about people like me, as if we were defective products." David swallowed hard. There was something about her posture, the way she held his gaze, that made him feel small. The phone rang again. This time, it was Camila's work number. Camila Santos. The voice was Mr. Peterson, the night supervisor. "I need to inform you that your employment has been terminated. Disciplinary issues. Your belongings will be mailed to you." Camila closed her eyes for a moment. 3 years of work, wiped out with a 30-second phone call. "Disciplinary issues," she repeated slowly. "Interesting. And what were those issues?" "That's confidential. You'll receive the documents in a few days." David gestured frantically, clearly trying to indicate that he had nothing to do with it, but Camila already understood perfectly well what was going on. "Mr. Peterson, a quick question. Who called you to inform you of my dismissal for disciplinary reasons?" Silence on the other end. "It was someone from Mitchell Corp., wasn't it? Perhaps Rebecca Mitchell herself." "I can't confirm details about." "Thank you. That tells me everything I need to know." She hung up and looked at David, who had slumped heavily into a kitchen chair. "My sister is trying to isolate you," he said quietly. "Without a job, without income, you become more vulnerable to her proposal." "Vulnerable?" Camila laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You know what real vulnerability is, David? It's being 16 pregnant, and kicked out of your home by parents who value the family's reputation over their own flesh and blood." David stared at her wide-eyed. "It's working 3 jobs while studying at night, carrying a small child around because you can't afford a babysitter. It's hearing college professors say, maybe you should rethink your priorities when you miss a class because your daughter is sick." She walked over to the refrigerator, where a few photos of Isabella were stuck with colorful magnets. A smiling girl with curly hair, wearing a school uniform. It's graduating with honors in business administration while cleaning offices in the early hours of the morning, only to find out that the corporate world would rather hire the boss's friend's son who barely finished college than a black woman and single mother, no matter how qualified she is. David remained silent, clearly uncomfortable with the raw honesty. So don't give me any of that talk about vulnerability, Camila continued, her voice gaining a strength that made the air in the kitchen seem heavier. Your sister just gave me the opportunity I've been waiting for years. She just doesn't know it yet. The phone rang a third time. Camila looked at the display and smiled, a smile that David realized was completely different from the previous ones. This one had something predatory about it. Rebecca Mitchell, she answered, putting it on speakerphone. How quick you are to cut off my livelihood. Really impressive. I see you got the message, came Rebecca's cold voice. This is just the beginning, dear. I have contacts all over town. No cleaning company will hire you after I finish spreading information about your lack of professionalism. David signaled for Camila to stop provoking her, but she ignored him completely. Information about my lack of professionalism, Camila repeated thoughtfully. Interesting. And what kind of information would that be? Use your imagination. An employee who takes advantage of compromising situations to blackmail executives. That doesn't look good in the job market. Oh, I see. And do you have any evidence to back up these allegations? Rebecca laughed. Honey, I don't need proof. I just need a solid reputation and a well-placed word. Who do you think they're going to believe, a Mitchell or well, you get the picture. The silence that followed was so thick that David could hear his own heartbeat. Rebecca, Camila finally said, her voice dangerously calm. Thank you for this conversation. It was very enlightening. I'm glad you understand the situation. The $5,000 offer still stands, but only until the offer is declined. Definitely. Then you've chosen the hard path. What a shame. I'm sure your daughter, Isabella, isn't she? What a shame she'll grow up watching her mother being publicly humiliated. David jumped out of his chair, gesturing desperately for Camila not to respond, but it was too late. The mention of Isabella had crossed a red line. You just mentioned my daughter, Camila said, each word articulated with surgical precision. That changes everything. Is that a threat? Rebecca laughed. What are you going to threaten me with? What resources? What connections? It's not threats that concern me, Camila replied. It's promises. And I promise you'll remember this conversation for the rest of your life. She hung up before Rebecca could respond. David watched her, clearly torn between admiration and terror. You have no idea what you just did. Rebecca can destroy your life completely. No, Camila corrected, picking up her old laptop from the living room table. She thinks she can. There's a fundamental difference. She opened the computer, and David noticed something he hadn't seen before, a series of meticulously organized folders on the desktop. Folders with names like corporate irregularities, recorded conversations, questionable correspondence. What's this? He asked, though part of him already suspected the answer. 3 years cleaning offices in the early hours, Camila explained, browsing through the files. You'd be surprised what people leave on desks, in trash cans, on printers. Documents they forgot to shred. Conversations they had thinking no one was listening. David felt his blood run cold. You were collecting information? I was surviving, she corrected. And learning. Do you know what the difference is between people like your sister and people like me? You underestimate everyone you consider inferior. And that makes you incredibly careless. She clicked on a specific folder, and David saw dozens of audio files, scanned documents, and even photos. For example, Camila continued, opening an audio file. Remember the meeting in March, when the board decided to lay off 200 employees to cut costs, and on the same day approved a $2 million bonus for the board of directors? Rebecca's voice echoed through the laptop speakers. It's simple, folks. We cut the fat at the bottom and keep the profits at the top. The media will talk about necessary restructuring for a week and then forget about it. David turned pale. You recorded the board meetings? Not all of them, Camila replied calmly. Just the most interesting ones. Like the one where your sister suggested finding creative ways not to pay benefits to employees fired for false disciplinary issues. David's world was falling apart by the second. He realized he had completely underestimated the woman in front of him. Why didn't you ever use this before? He asked. Camila looked him straight in the eye. Because I'm not like you. I don't destroy people for pleasure or power. But when someone threatens my daughter, she paused. When someone threatens my daughter, I become exactly the kind of person your sister should have feared from the beginning. Isabella appeared at the bedroom door, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Mommy? Why are you talking so loudly? Camila immediately closed her laptop and went to her daughter. Sorry, sweetie. Mommy was just solving some work problems. Did you get fired? Isabella asked, with that keen perception that children have for detecting problems. Let's just say Mommy is going to change jobs, Camila replied, kissing the girl's forehead. But don't worry. Sometimes change is good. Isabella looked at David, who was trying to make himself invisible in the kitchen chair. Is he still here? For now, yes. But soon he will leave and solve some very serious problems that have suddenly arisen. David got the message. Camila Santos wasn't just a cleaning lady who had been unfairly fired. She was a woman who had spent 3 years documenting every irregularity, every compromising conversation, every questionable decision made by Mitchell Corp. And now, Rebecca had made the fatal mistake of turning her from a silent observer into an active adversary. Each new humiliation only strengthened something inside her that her oppressors couldn't see, a silent force fueled by the very injustice they tried to impose. What Rebecca didn't know was that each act of contempt was writing her own sentence of defeat, and that behind those calm eyes lay a strategic intelligence forged by years of forced invisibility and silent injustices. For a moment, when Camila had bowed her head in the face of threats over the phone, everyone thought they had broken her spirit, but those who know true strength know that it grows precisely in silence, waiting for the perfect moment to emerge and show that patience is not weakness, but the most powerful weapon of those who know exactly when and how to use it. You don't understand, David said, watching Camila close her laptop with a calmness that disturbed him. Rebecca will use all the company's resources against you. Lawyers, private investigators, contacts in the media. She has the power to destroy your life completely. Camila smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. David, you still don't understand, do you? I'm not fighting your sister. I'm preparing the funeral for her career. She picked up the phone and dialed a number. Dr. Hamilton? It's Camila Santos. Yes, the time has come. David frowned. Who was Dr. Hamilton? 15 minutes. Agreed location. And doctor, bring everything. As she got ready, Camila explained without looking at David. 3 years ago, when I started working at Mitchell Corp., I met a man in the building's cafeteria. A labor lawyer, specializing in civil rights. He had been unfairly fired from a large firm after reporting irregularities. Dr. Marcus Hamilton, David whispered, recognizing the name. He sued Sterling and Associates for racial discrimination. He won $3 million. Exactly. And since then, he's been collecting cases against companies like yours. You weren't the main target, until now. David felt his stomach churn. Did you plan this from the beginning? No. Initially, I just wanted to survive, raise my daughter, and maybe one day get a better job. But when you spent 3 years treating me like furniture, when Rebecca decided I was disposable, she paused, looking directly at him. You turned an invisible employee into a very well-informed enemy. Her phone rang. Rebecca again. Camila, dear, I hope you've reconsidered our conversation. Because I've just discovered some very interesting things about you. Camila put it on speakerphone, gesturing for David to remain silent. What kind of things, Rebecca? Well, it seems you have a degree in business administration, but you never mentioned that on your employee file. Omission of information. Grounds for dismissal for just cause. Interesting. And where did you get this information? I have my sources. I also discovered that you had financial problems 2 years ago. Overdue debts. This raises questions about integrity. David noticed Camila's expression harden slightly. Rebecca, did you hire a private investigator to dig into my life? Necessary precautions. And if you think you can blackmail me with your evidence, know that I can easily prove it was obtained illegally. Invasion of privacy, breach of corporate confidentiality. Oh, I see. So you're accusing me of crimes. If necessary, yes. One word from me to the police about a problematic employee with access to sensitive information, and you'll have much bigger problems than unemployment. David gestured frantically, trying to signal that Rebecca was going too far, but Camila ignored him. "Rebecca, thank you for this conversation. It was enlightening." "I hope it was. The $5,000 offer still stands, but only until the end of the day. After that." "After that, what?" "After that, you'll just be another sad story that no one will want to hear." Camila hung up and immediately started another call. "Dr. Hamilton? Change of plans. Bring your contacts at the public prosecutor's office and the press too. Rebecca just confessed to some very interesting things." David looked at her as if he were seeing a completely different person. "Did you record the conversation?" "David, I've been recording everything for 3 years. It's a matter of survival." An hour later, they met with Dr. Marcus Hamilton at a discreet cafe. The man was imposing, black, around 50 years old, well-tailored suit, a presence that commanded respect. "Camila," he greeted her warmly. "And this must be David Mitchell." David extended his hand hesitantly. "Doctor." "Let's get straight to the point," Dr. Hamilton said, opening a briefcase. "Camila gave me some preliminary information. Systematic discrimination, wrongful termination, threats, illegal investigation of an employee's private life. That's enough for at least 3 different lawsuits." "But that's just the beginning," Camila added, connecting her laptop. "Show him the executive meetings folder, Dr. Hamilton." They spent the next hour reviewing evidence. Audio recordings, photograph documents, deleted emails that Camila had recovered from printers and trash cans. "My God," Dr. Hamilton murmured as he listened to a recording in which Rebecca discussed how to get rid of problematic employees by creating false disciplinary charges. "This is criminal conspiracy." David was pale. "I never knew Rebecca was doing these things." "But you allowed it," Camila said calmly. "Every time you turned a blind eye to her management techniques. Every time you chose not to know how profits were increasing while employees were disappearing." Dr. Hamilton closed the folder. "Camila, with this material, I can sue them for racial discrimination, illegal retaliation, violation of labor rights, and create a federal case for civil rights violations." "How long?" she asked. "I can file the first documents today. The temporary injunction to protect you from further retaliation will be issued in 48 hours. The main case, 6 months to complete resolution." David swallowed hard. 6 months. If they want to fight. But with evidence like this, I suspect they'll prefer a substantial settlement well before then. Camila smiled. "Dr. Hamilton, I don't want a settlement." The lawyer raised his eyebrows. "No. I want this to go public. I want every employee they humiliated, every person they discriminated against, to know that there are consequences for this kind of behavior. This is going to be a war, Camila. They're going to try to destroy your reputation, your life. They already have. The difference is that now I have allies." Dr. Hamilton smiled. "In that case, let's go to war. But we're going to win." When they left the cafe, David was visibly shaken. "Camila, there's still time to stop this. Rebecca may be extreme, but she's my sister." "David," Camila stopped and looked him in the eye. "Your sister just threatened my daughter. She hired investigators to invade my privacy. She's trying to criminalize me for having evidence of crimes she herself committed." "I know, but..." "There are no buts." Her voice was firm, final. "Rebecca chose to turn this into a war. I'm just going to finish what she started." That night, after Isabella fell asleep, Camila sat down at the kitchen table with her laptop. She created a new file and began typing, "Chronology of Irregularities Mitchell Corp 2021 to 2024. Page after page, she documented every incident, every recording, every piece of evidence, organizing 3 years of systematic data collection into a clear and irrefutable timeline. David, who had stayed on the couch at her request not to go home until we clarified his situation, watched silently. "Can I ask you something?" he said finally. "Go ahead." "Why did you really do this? 3 years collecting evidence. That's a lot of work, a lot of risk." Camila paused typing. "Because I knew that one day they would go too far. And when that happened, I wanted to be prepared." "But how did you know?" "David, I grew up poor, black, and a single mother. I learned early on that the world isn't fair, but that there's a difference between unfairness and systematic abuse. You crossed that line a long time ago. She saved the file and closed the laptop. Tomorrow, Dr. Hamilton will file the first documents. Rebecca is going to find out she's not dealing with a scared cleaning lady. She's dealing with someone who has turned 3 years of silent humiliation into solid evidence. David remained silent, processing the magnitude of what was about to happen. "What about me?" he finally asked. Camila studied him for a long moment. "That's up to you, David. You can continue to be a silent accomplice, or you can do the right thing for the first time in years." Her phone vibrated. A message from Dr. Hamilton, "Documents ready for filing. Rebecca Mitchell has no idea what's coming." Camila smiled, but this time there was something definitive about that smile. It was the smile of someone who had spent 3 years quietly building a fortress, while her enemies believed she was defenseless. Under the weight of all those years of silent injustice, her hands moved with surgical precision across the keyboard, organizing evidence like a general preparing her army. But anyone watching closely would notice that it wasn't revenge that guided her movements. It was the meticulous power of someone who had turned every humiliation suffered into ammunition for a war that Rebecca Mitchell had started, but that Camila Santos was about to end in a way that would rewrite the rules of the game forever. The next morning, Rebecca arrived at the office confident. Until she found journalists at the door. "Miss Mitchell, is it true that your company fires employees for false disciplinary reasons?" shouted a reporter. She pushed past the cameras and hurried inside. In the elevator, she called Camila. "You don't know who you're messing with." "Actually," Camila interrupted, "I know exactly who. Dr. Hamilton filed 3 lawsuits today. Racial discrimination, illegal retaliation, and criminal conspiracy." "Impossible. You have no evidence." "I have 3 years of recordings, Rebecca. Including you planning fake firings and calling black employees cultural problems." The silence was deafening. "Oh, and the press already has copies of everything." Rebecca hung up and rushed to her office. David was waiting for her with a folder. "I'm resigning," he said simply. "And I'm going to testify against you." "You can't." "Yes, I can. And I will." He smiled sadly. "Camila taught me that integrity is worth more than blood." Rebecca opened the folder. Inside, her own resignation, letter of resignation from the board, and an agreement transferring her shares to a charitable trust. Sign, or face jail time. She picked up the pen with trembling hands. In that moment, 3 years of silent humiliation turned into the most complete and devastating defeat an arrogant person could suffer, not only losing everything, but discovering that she had completely underestimated someone who turned every injustice she suffered into solid evidence against her. 6 months later, Camila adjusted her new blazer as she entered the Mitchell Corp building, now renamed Sterling Industries after the complete merger. "Director of Human Resources," she murmured, reading the sign on her new door. David had insisted on the position after he took full control of the company. Isabella ran down the hall. "Mom, can I go to your meeting today?" "Of course, sweetheart. Today is special." The meeting was with former employees who had been unfairly dismissed. Dr. Hamilton had managed to reverse 47 cases, securing reinstatement and substantial compensation. "Every person here," Camila told the assembled group, "represents a victory against a system that treated us as disposable." Her assistant handed her an envelope. It arrived today. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Camila, you were right about everything. I lost my license, my friends, my dignity. I live alone in a small apartment, without resources. Maybe one day you'll forgive me. Rebecca." Camila folded the letter calmly. Forgiveness was possible, but consequences were necessary. David appeared at the door. "How are you feeling on your first official day?" "Fine. It's strange to be on the other side of the table." "You deserve to be here. By the way," he smiled, "Isabella told me she wants to be a lawyer like Dr. Hamilton. She said she wants to defend people like us." That afternoon, Camila stopped by the old cleaning floor. She greeted each employee by name, something she had never done before. "Principal," said Maria, one of the cleaners. "Thank you for everything you've done for us." "We protect each other," Camila replied. "That's how we change the world." That evening, at home, Isabella did her homework while Camila reviewed proposals for the new scholarship program. "Mom," Isabella asked, "are you still mad at that mean woman?" Camila paused. "No, sweetheart. Anger doesn't build anything. Justice does." "And what is justice?" "It's when people like us get equal opportunities. It's when no one is invisible anymore." Isabella smiled. "How did you do it?" "I turned every injustice into evidence, every humiliation into motivation, and every no into fuel for a bigger yes." Rebecca had tried to break her spirit, but only strengthened her determination. The real revenge was not to destroy her, it was to build something bigger than she could ever imagine. Today, the foundation created by Camila has helped hundreds of families. Rebecca lives in isolation, facing the consequences of years of systematic cruelty. Camila learned that the best response to prejudice is not to fight back with hatred, it is to prove that intelligence, dignity, and perseverance always win over arrogance. If this story of transformation and justice has touched you, subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes the greatest victory is not to bring down those who have hurt you, it is to rise so high that they become irrelevant from your vantage point below.